So I'm going to do two different videos for these notes, one for the front and one for the back because the problems look a little bit different. You will need a calculator to solve these, so if you want to grab a calculator before moving on, that would be good. And you need to do a little test on your calculator to make sure that it's in the right mode. So once you get your calculator, what I want you to do is type into your calculator sine of 30. When you hit enter, you should get 0.5. If you're not getting 0.5, then come and see me and I'll fix your calculator so that it's in the right mode. So just make sure you do that little test first. So what these notes are on is how to solve for x, how to find a missing side length. Now, in this triangle, if I knew two sides, if I knew that that was 20 yards and let's say this was 10 yards, then I could use the Pythagorean theorem just like we did on the last test. But I can't use the Pythagorean theorem because now there's two sides that I don't know. Okay, so I have SOHCAHTOA here on every slide so that you can see it, and we're going to use it on every slide and it'll be on your test for you. So what you want to do is, the first thing we're going to do is look at our angle. Here's my angle, it's 22 degrees, and I'm going to label my three sides. So we know that across from the 90-degree angle, that's my hypotenuse. Across from the angle, that's the opposite. And right next to it is the adjacent. So now after that, I have to figure out what trig function I want to use. Well, the O over here has nothing. There's no x, there's no number, so I'm not going to use that O. So I'm going to use A and H. So which trig function uses A and H? Well, that would be the cosine. So the way we set up our equation, you do your trig function first and then your angle. So cosine of 22 equals, now we know that this equals A over H, so x over 20. And now I need to solve for x. I have to get it all by itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply both sides by the denominator. Since it's x divided by 20, if I multiply by 20, those will cancel. So x equals 20 times cosine of 22. And this whole thing you plug right into your calculator. 20 times cosine of 22. And when you hit enter and round, we're going to see that x is 18.5, and don't forget our units, of yards. Okay, so the steps for all of these problems on the front are going to be exactly the same. Figure out your trig function, set up your equation, solve for x. So, in our next triangle, again, start by looking at your angle and label your sides. So, this would be H, across from the angle is opposite, right next to it is adjacent. So, now, which trig function do I want to use? Well, I don't have H, there's nothing over there. So, I'm going to use O and A, so O and A is tangent. So, I have tangent of my angle equals O over A, which would be x over 13.5. So now, again, multiply by the denominator. So x equals 13.5 times tangent of 71. And don't flip these numbers. Sometimes students will flip these numbers accidentally. Remember, whatever your trig function is, after your trig function is always your angle. So, plug those into the calculator, we get 39.2. So, for my next one, again, start with your angle, label your sides. So, this is my hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. So, this time, I don't have A. So, O and H is going to be sine. So, sine of 51 equals x over 8.5. Multiply by your denominator. So x equals 8.5 times the sine of 51. And when we plug that into our calculator, that's going to be 6.6. So you've seen one using sine, using cosine, using tangent, but all the process is exactly the same. Now the last one is just a little bit different because I have two angles. Now the good news is you can pick whichever angle you want. I'm going to do this problem twice to show you what would happen with each angle, but if I picked 53, then this would be opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So O and H are the two that I would use, so I would use sine. So sine of 53 equals x over 11. I would multiply both sides by 11, plug it into my calculator, and I would get 8.8. However, if I use the other angle, 37, this is still the hypotenuse, but now this is the opposite and the adjacent. So this time I'm going to use cosine. So I could use the cosine of 37 equals x over 11. And you're going to get the same answer. 11 times the cosine of 37 is still 8.8. So you're going to get the same answer no matter what. Now obviously on a test you're not going to have to do both. You just have to do one to get the right answer. But you could use either angle. So when you're presented with a triangle that has both angles there, you can pick whichever one you want and solve it the same way that you have been solving. Okay? If you have any problems with this, you can watch this again or feel free to ask me. On the back, we're going to look at what happens when your problem has x in the denominator instead of the numerator. So all of these problems on the front had x in the numerator. On the back, we'll see what happens when x is in the denominator.